And hello again, and no, I haven't mislabeled this video. This video is about the Z1000A1 project, not about my Mark II here. But the reason why I'm standing behind it is today we're going to talk about the engine spec and the engine build of the Z1000A1. And as you can see, this bike here does not yet have an engine. And that's because the engine build's taken a hell of a long time, mainly because we're waiting on the head, which is being ported and flowed and completely rebuilt. But when the engine is finished and it goes in the frame at last, it will be by far the most expensive item on the bike. And it's expensive because it's been completely rebuilt. It's got new carbs, it's got forged pistons, flowed head, as I said, balance welded crank, powder coated cases and so on. You know, it's getting the full Monty, as it were. Even down to every bolt is a polished stainless steel bolt from Pro Bolt. Each little bolt is about £5, so you can see how the value goes up and up and up, or rather the cost. So, as you can see, the engine is a very important part of the bike for me, both in this bike and also in my 650/1170 build, which is currently sitting in the garage. And guess what? That's got a GP Z1100 engine in it, which is taken out to 1170cc. It's also got forged pistons. It's also got a rebuilt welded crank. It's also got Mikuni RS34 carbs, all brand new, and so on and so on and so on. Again, a very expensive engine build. So when it comes to the engine build and spec of the Z1000A1, it's natural to me to think, well, I've done 1170, I've done a 1400, what's next? What's the next level? And I've been thinking about that for quite a long time. Could supercharge it, could turbocharge it, you know, all kinds of options. But having thought about it for, as I say, quite a long time, I've decided that I won't go down that route. I'm going to build it to be a fairly standard spec engine. It'll look fantastic, it should be reliable, easy to start, no great problems getting spares. And altogether, I think I'll give it a slight overbore and go for a pretty standard 1075cc bore, as opposed to a standard engine size, which is 1015. So a little bit of an increase, but nothing too serious there. So with that in mind then, I've been buying parts for the engine for the last few weeks, in fact for the last few months. And now I've just come in the garage because it's getting quite windy outside and it's a bit quieter in here. So yes, I am going to build the engine to be pretty standard. Makes my life a lot easier, and I think I'm going to put my efforts and time and money into the rest of the bike. So while the engine will be quite expensive to build, it won't be hopefully a £4,000 engine build. So the money I'll not spend on the engine, I'm going to spend on other parts of the bike, such as the paintwork. Obviously we know suspension is going to be pretty cool, front end, brakes, that sort of thing. I've not yet talked about the paintwork for the bike because that's still under consideration, but I've got a couple of ideas which I think should be quite cool. What it won't be is it won't be red, because pretty much all my bikes are red at the moment. This is red, the Mark II's red, my Guzzi's red, my Ducatis are red. I think only the green Z650 behind me, which was that colour when I bought it, is not red. Oh, and also the Norlid, which is black and gold. So it won't be red. Not sure what colour it's going to be yet. It won't be red, it won't be green. So after that we'll have to, well, you have to wait and see what I come up with. And so when it comes to the engine, I started off with almost nothing. I started off with a set of empty engine cases and a worn out barrel, and that's about it. So in some ways that's bad because you've got the expense and cost and hassle of buying all the parts you want. But in another way it's also quite good because it means the spec of the engine is completely open. You know, I've not bought anything yet, so I could have gone any way I wanted. So over the last few months I've been slowly buying parts of the bike. I've already bought myself a complete transmission stroke gearbox. That's in a box out in the storage area at the back of the house, and I won't open that box because no doubt it's full of pinions and cogs and gears and springs. I don't want to open it up and lose something, so that'll be opened up and investigated and checked over when it's time for the engine to be built. I've also now bought a clutch. That's what's in the box here. Let me just open it up for you. It's all very carefully wrapped up. I won't open it. It's just a clutch, basically. It's just a clutch for the bike. While, if you just bear with me for a second, we'll move that out of the way. In this box here, I'm not sure you can see it, in this big box here that's just arrived. In here is a cylinder head, and cylinder heads aren't cheap actually. I've spent a long time trying to find a decent one. I wanted one which came complete with the cam caps, because the cam caps are made to work with that particular cylinder head. You don't want to be changing them out and putting a cam cap from one engine into another engine, because they're not matched up. So hopefully this will be good enough for that. Looks quite good actually. Let me just put this down so I can open the thing up for you guys, because I've not seen it myself yet. As you can see, I've just opened it up. It's all carefully wrapped up. As usual, this comes from D&K in Staffordshire. They seem to be the folks who bring in all the gear from America, second-hand parts and so on. They're not cheap, but they are reliable. So that's what I value. I know when I pay, I'm going to get the goods. That's not always the case. So yeah, let me just make a bit of space here. It's all a bit of a struggle, isn't it? Right, there you go, there you go. Cool. So yeah, in here is my future cylinder head for the bike. So let me grab my here. Excuse me, I'm not sure you can hear me too well, but yeah. So when it comes to the cylinder head, oil, oh god, it's got oil all over me now, but never mind. This is pretty bare. Apart from the cam caps, there's nothing else, I don't think. No valves, no buckets, no springs, you know, got to buy all them. And you've got to be fitting second-hand parts, so they'll all be new. And I've been checking out the cost of things like buckets. We need buckets for the valve, sit on top of the valves, for the cam tip. And god, they're expensive. If you want to get one bucket, an OE bucket from Kawasaki, it's £46 for one. I need 8 of them, so I think we'll be looking for alternatives for them. Luckily, the aftermarket is full of cool stuff, and in America, folks like APE and Kipplewhite, they make something like that. They make sets of performance ones. I won't be buying titanium parts, don't worry, but I will be buying something decent. This looks like it's been rebuilt partly anyway, which is one reason why I liked it. So what we've got here is, it looks like it's been, if not blasted, then someone's taken a lot of care over it. Luckily, all of the exhaust studs look okay. They're not broken or missing, which often happens. All of the fins are okay, little mark there, but pretty much all okay. As I say, I wanted it because it's got these cam caps, which are essential if you want to build a good engine, because these cam caps are made to work with this particular this particular head. So you don't want to be swapping them out unless you really have to. I've even got a couple of spark plugs in here as well. So overall then, it's pretty good. I don't know what state the valve guides are in. We'll leave that to the experts, but fingers crossed the valve guides are okay and don't need to be replaced. Because if they do need to be replaced, that's another few £100 of expense. But there you go. I've even got some rather tired looking inlet stubs here. I mean, that one's battered. The problem is they go hard over time. I mean, these are probably original, and they're getting over 40 years old, so we can't be using them. I'll also not be using these clamps and so on, so all of them will be changed. But the good news is they're all there. They're not being messed about with, which is what I liked. So let's look at the other side. Let's look at the, actually my glasses are over there, I can't see very well without those. But yeah, we'll have to probably recut these seats, just because you may as well do it while you're rebuilding your head. It's not that expensive. You're fitting new valves, you may as well, given you're fitting new valves and springs, you may as well cut these seats to match. A little bit of marking here. I think this has probably been blasted at some point, or maybe even vapor blasted, because it looks far too clean to come off a bike and engine that's just, you know, been broken up. But yeah, overall pretty happy with that. As usual, you've got to negotiate with D&K. They don't give you anything. I mean, if you say, look, this is £200, can you give it me for 150? You'll get a reply back saying, well, I can give it you for 195. So you say, well, how about 160? and they'll come back and say, well, how about, I don't know, £192.50? They're not very, I think it might be a bot that does that, it's not a person, it's just a bot, but yeah, they don't give you much. I got this, I think, for about £150, which I'm pretty happy with. There are some that are a lot more than that, and there are some that are an awful lot less, but the ones that are less have broken fins, these caps are missing and so on, so we don't want to worry about that kind of stuff. So yeah, I may even actually change these exhaust studs just in case one breaks. You may as well change them and possibly even go up from 6mm to 8mm. That's quite a common mod to make them a bit stronger. You've got to tap it out and stuff, but that can be done. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I've now got oil all over me, but never mind. Yeah, so I have now got pretty much all the major parts for the bike. I haven't got pistons yet because, as I say, I wasn't sure what spec to make the engine. I don't yet have cams or any parts for the head. I do actually have a cam cover somewhere, it's behind there somewhere, these blasting and so on. Also, since I'm very interested in how things look, these engines I've got in the 1170 and the Mark II, they're all black. So I don't want to do a black engine again. So as you can see, this head here has just been blasted, it's silver. So I'll probably go for a silver finish on the engine. What I won't do though is just get it vapor blasted and leave it at that. No. Because it'll soon get marked, soon get fingerprints on it, oil stains, whatever. So what I'll do is I'll get it blasted and then I'll probably get it either powder coated or even maybe ceramically coated at cam coat like this one has been, but I'll do it in silver. That way I get a tough finish that looks pretty original for a Z1000A1, and away we go. I may even also, something I do like actually, is when the cylinder barrel is a different colour from the rest of the engine. I know a lot of people don't like that, but I think it looks quite cool. Looks a bit sort of drag racer-ish, so I might go that route, but we'll see. Because the rest of the bike is quite black, you know, the forks are all black, the wheels are black, frame's black, and probably the paintwork will be quite a dark colour, so a bit of contrast is always good. So yeah, when it comes to the engine, it's going to be fairly standard spec. Standard in terms of the internals anyway. On the externals it'll look very different. I think I'll try and do something that isn't too common, you don't see very often. Got some ideas for that in terms of the finish on the outside of the engine, exhaust system, that sort of thing. And so, having decided on the spec of the engine, I can now move forward and buy a set of pistons for the bike. I also need to find some cams, for example, although that's not so urgent at the moment. But starting from where we are now, I need to check out the engine cases, make sure they've got no damage internally, no tiny little cracks or problems that we are unaware of. Once those cases are found to be okay, those cases can go to be either powder coated or hard anodized stroke ceramically anodized, either at SSS or cam coat. It's coming. There we go. That was a lot easier than I expected, thankfully. So now, what I'm going to do is get my magnifying glass out in this good weather and inspect everything I can on these cases. In particular, these journals here and these little pegs, they help hold the bearings in place. Clean this all off and I'll get my magnifying glass out and we'll see, hopefully, if all is well. And so it's important to remember that all of these faces are not actually the bearings. These are the faces into which the bearings sit. So you've got these little pegs in each of the bearing faces here, and they help to locate the bearings and stop them from turning, and it's these that you need to check. So I was told that they shouldn't move, they shouldn't be loose, you should twist them and they will feel okay. That's great. So now I'm going to inspect them very carefully in bright sunlight, looking for any cracks, any visible problems. What's that there? Oh, that's fine. I must say it's great. Today's a very sunny day. The light's fantastic. I can see things very clearly. No shadows to worry about. Yeah, that's fine. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that so far. Obviously you can't really check internally, but you don't expect to see any real cracks, you know, down into the innards of the cases. They look okay. Everything looks okay actually. Everything looks pretty damn good. And so now I've given these cases a quick clean. They're still pretty dirty, but at least they're not so oily. And it's interesting that as you clean away all the muck and oil, you can unveil all the flaking paint here. There's paint flaking off everywhere, so it'd be really hard to do that by hand. If you painted this thing, it's going to take you hours and hours and hours, because you have to rub off all of this flaky paint through all the little nooks and crannies. It would take you forever. So I'm not doing that. I'm going to take these down to probably cam coat next week and get them blasted and coated. So we'll leave these here now, drying off in the sunshine, and we'll get on and do something else. And now here we are, another day back in my garage, and an awful lot of parcels have arrived today. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 down there, all for the engine, thankfully. So we'll start off with what's in this box here, which is from a company called IMD, who are based in Chester, not too far away from me. And in here I've got my pistons at a very good price for these, actually, very pleased with them. And I couldn't find a decent set of pistons that took the engine out to 1075, but these are a halfway house. These are 1mm over stock, which gives an engine size of about 1040, 1035, something like that. So I think they'll do. In the same parcel for that, I also got, again from IMD, I also got this little box here. In here are a set of brand new valves from Japan. Standard size, nothing, you know, tuned about it. It's just a nice set of valves ready to go on the top end. So that's great. Along with that, I've also got here some parcels that I've not even opened yet. They're all still wrapped, carefully wrapped in a little bubble wrap that they came in. And in here we have a set of buckets for the engine. Used buckets, but they're in good condition, and buckets don't tend to wear very much on engines, because when I checked the Z1000A website, the price of one brand new bucket, an oil bucket from Kawasaki, was £46, and you need 8 of them. So that sounds a bit ridiculous, particularly when the older ones, the used ones, don't wear. Also in here I've got a set of springs, and yeah, if you don't know Kawasaki Zs, they've actually got 2 springs per valve. They've got an inner and an outer one. Yes, I've got them. I've also got a brand new set of seals, valve seals from APE over in America. They're here now. So yeah, I'm slowly building up all the parts I need. But as always with my builds, there's good news and there's also some bad news. So when the pistons arrived, I thought, oh great, I can now take the block away and get it rebored. Here it is. Here's my old block that came with the cases. But before I sent it away, I thought, oh, I'll just check it, just to be on the safe side. I'll just see what size these bores are. Now, I don't have a bore gauge which accurately measures the bores of engines, but I do have the old vernier calipers. You know, they'll do just to be close enough. So I measured them. I was somewhat shocked, because a standard Z1000, the bore is 70mm. It's actually 69 point something, but it's clear 70. When I measured these, it wasn't 70, or just over 70, or just under 70. It was in fact 72.5. I thought, bloody hell, what the hell's going on here? Has this block been bored out or something in the past? I didn't think you had any work on it. So that puzzled me, until Les, who provided me with this engine, he said, oh no, this is from a 1100, not 1000. I thought, oh, alright, fine. So that explains why. So it's a good job I didn't send it off, because it's the wrong bloody block. I can't use it. So I'll have to go back on a shelf somewhere. I've got to find myself a decent, undamaged Z1000A1 or A2 or A3 or A4 block. And now here we are back in my garage, another day, and another parcel's turned up. In this case, it's a parcel labelled up as from Delcovic, the exhaust people. But this is not from Delcovic. No, this is from good old D&K Spares. Although having said that, D&K Spares own Delcovic exhaust, so that's why I suppose it's in a Delcovic box. Now in here we have my hopefully new, well not new but used, block for the engine. And if you recall, I couldn't use the block I had because it turned out to be for an 1100, not a 1075, so I've got this one instead. It's in pretty good condition overall. I'll have to have it rebored, and then we'll get it recoated by cam coat at some point in the next few weeks. That said, it's not perfect. In fact, most blocks you find on eBay are far from perfect. This is one of the best ones I could find. and it cost me about £150, and that was after some negotiation. And the reason why it's not absolutely perfect is because, let's find it, yeah, it's got somewhere, if I find it, where's it gone? Oh yeah, there it is, can't see it for looking. Over here on the corner, on this side here, as you can see, it's got a couple of broken fins, which is not uncommon, believe me. And this is only a small break, just a couple of small little nibbles there on those fins. So what we'll do with that is I'll take it over to Jeff the welder sometime this week, and he'll fill that break with aluminium weld. I'll then bring it back here and spend no doubt many hours with a hand file and file that weld back to give me a good repair. And when it's all been hopefully coated with either powder coat or a ceramic coating, it hopefully will be invisible, so that's not too bad. I'm not sure yet whether the colour I'll go for will be silver, the same as the cases and the head, or whether I'll go for black, or who knows, a different colour. I haven't decided yet. We'll decide that at a later date. And so moving on then, I've not just been buying second-hand parts for the engine, I've also been buying new parts for the engine. I've recently got an order in, and it includes things like the cam chain, heavy duty studs and top nuts, they're from APE, and a few other small things. They're all packed away. I'm not opening those boxes, they're all packed away waiting for the day when the engine build starts, so that's fine. One thing I have been quite surprised at and quite shocked at actually is how much it costs for the cam chain idler set. The cam chain runs on rollers up and down the cam chain tunnel, and they are incredibly expensive, unbelievably so. Each one's more than £100, and even a full set it's something like £430 I think from Z1000A1, and they may even not be OE, I think they're aftermarket, and it's like, oh my god. Now you can buy those parts obviously off eBay used, but given that they're basically just simple rollers, then who knows what state they're in. The bearings could be worn out, you know, which you don't want on a brand new engine build. So I think I might have to bite the bullet and spend £400+ on this little idler set. I must say I'm quite shocked at how much it costs. Looking at them, they don't look that complicated, so I'm not quite sure why they're so expensive. You can buy aftermarket ones, I think they're from a company called Liska, something like that, in the USA, via APE, but even they are almost the same price. I guess they're heavy duty, but at the same price, then you're not really getting very much. My engine in this build is it's not going to be a big tuned performance engine, so I don't really need anything too fancy. So yeah, it's a bit shocking to find out how much those parts cost, but you know, you live and learn, you live and learn. Yes, so there's a quick update on progress with buying all the parts I need for the engine. At the moment I think I'm on day 12 or 13 since I left the engine cases and so on with Camcoat, and they promised me an approximate turnaround of about 14 days or 2 weeks. I'm also waiting this week to get a call from the local engineering place who are working on my head. As it turns out, I thought the head was in pretty good condition, but guess what, I was wrong. Turns out there was a small amount of water damage to the surfaces, and I guess that might be why the head was actually blasted before I got it. So that water damage is being sorted out by skimming the head, and of course we're also recutting all the valve seats at the same time. So I should be getting a phone call about that to go and pick it up sometime this week, and then yeah, we can make some more progress. And now here we are, it's the next day, and I've just collected my barrel from Jeff the Welders, who's repaired the broken fins. I guess you can't really see it from over there, so I'll put a photograph right now and you can see how well that's been repaired. The good news is he also cleaned up the welds for me as well, saved me a job. And so no sooner had I made the last part of this video when I got a phone call from my local machine shop to say that my head, which is here now, is ready for collection. So I just collected it, it's all nicely wrapped up, good and clean, and I've had it skimmed and the valve seats have been recut, and all that cost me £90, which I thought was quite reasonable. So I'm holding off right now of rebuilding the head with the valves and springs and so on, because I want to see how the natural alloy finish on their head compares to the new silver ceramic finish on the cases. If it looks a bit off, doesn't look quite right, then I'll have to get this head also sonically coated, so it matches, but I'm not sure yet, so we'll just wait until I get the cases back. We should be sometime in the next few days. And now here we are, another day, and yes, another box has arrived. This is another eBay buy, and hopefully, fingers crossed, this part is as good in real life as it looked in the photographs on eBay. So let's get it open and see what we've got in here. And so in here should be, I hope, a good set of carbs for the bike. Well wrapped, I like that. Let's have a look. Now these are a standard set of carbs from the Z1000A1. So in comparison to those carbs fitted to my 1170 and the 1400, which both have Mikuni RS34 carbs, these are actually very small. These are only, as you can see, quite small there, these are only 26 millimeters. So I did wonder whether I should fit some slightly larger carbs, but in the end I thought no, we'll go with what Mr. Kawasaki specified back in the day. So these are pretty good condition actually, looking at these. A little bit of wear on it, but nothing too bad. So the question is, do I fit them just as is, or do I take them all apart and check them all through with new gaskets and make sure all of the jets are clear and so on? But looking at that, hang on, I'll just put it like that. You know, that doesn't seem too bad. The choke still works, so that's good. Often the chokes get very stiff and they sort of lock up and they don't work too well. But looking at this, that actually feels really nice. Everything seems to work okay. Now obviously there is a little bit of corrosion here and there on some of the cabin plated parts at the top, for example, or maybe, you know, these screws aren't too good, but actually it's not bad at all. I will, I think, take them apart at some point, but really I'm pretty happy with this particular set. They look pretty damn nice. At the very least I'll actually polish the tops, of course, and I'll remove these card bottoms and have a look inside, make sure the jets aren't too mucky or whatever. But overall, yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with these carbs. They're just as good as they looked on the photographs on eBay, and price wise, again, pretty damn good. I think I paid £215 for these. Had to negotiate a little bit to get it down, but yeah, that's a good price, I think. Now, compared to buying a brand new set of Mikuni RS carbs, this is a real bargain, because brand new Mikuni RS carbs are close on £1,000. Now, if I felt the engine deserved some really nice carbs, you know, some aftermarket performance carbs, then I would have bought some, just as I fitted to my 1170 and the 1400. But this engine, going in the Z1000A1, is going to be pretty standard, so I figured we'll just fit standard carbs at the same time. We can always reject them if need be. Yeah, so pretty happy with that. And so perhaps it might be a good idea not to strip these carbs down to the last nut and bolt, but instead perhaps either leave them as they are, because they do look pretty damn good, and just do a quick visual inspection when we take off the covers. Or alternatively, what I could do is break this carb set down to 4 separate carbs and put each carb into an ultrasonic bath. Now, I don't have an ultrasonic cleaner, but I am thinking of buying one, so this could be a good excuse for me to go and spend some more money and buy one for myself. I'm not sure if Les has got one actually, perhaps he has. But if he's got one, then hopefully we can use that and clean these carbs up. I will actually polish the carb tops and that sort of thing, and maybe replace some of the old fasteners. Although to be fair, these actually don't look too bad at all. They're not perfect, but yeah, I think we will buy a rebuild kit for it and replace some of the tarnished and rusted fasteners. But apart from that, you know, this is a pretty damn nice set of carbs at first inspection. Although I've said that before, and it turns out the parts I'm looking at aren't quite as good as I first thought. But hopefully those carbs will work really well on the engine. And to go with those carbs, I've ordered a new set of manifold rubbers, as well as some clamps and so on, so that when the engine is ready to go, I've got all the parts I need to get the engine built up fully. I still need a pair of cams, haven't got them yet. Been looking but not found a suitable pair yet. But at least I have now found out I already own a really nice rebuilt crankshaft. And as it turned out, I forgot all about it, but it was built for me about 6 months ago by Jeff it wasn't welded, but it was stripped, cleaned and checked for straightness and so on, and then rebuilt, repressed together for a different project. But it turned out the crank wasn't quite right for that particular engine, so it got replaced by something else, and Jeff kept that crank in his shed for the last 6 months, which I completely forgot about. I've since actually bought 2 other cranks for a Z1000A1, both of which are not good enough to go in the engine as is. So I think what we'll do is we'll take those 2 cranks, strip them all down, press them apart, and make one really good crank out of those 2. Although of course right now I no longer need a rebuilt crank built from those 2 not quite perfect cranks, but I'm sure going forward I may need one in the future, or either Jeff or Les or someone we know might require a really nice crank made for a Z1000A1 or A2. So it'll come in handy one day, no doubt. But if it doesn't, I'll probably go and buy a bike just to use the damn crank. That's the sort of things I do sometimes. So yeah, things are going okay. Parts are still out in the world, being worked on. Still waiting to get a call from Camcoat to get back the cases and so on, which are being coated right now. And the repaired block is still out at my local engineering shop being rebored, but hopefully they should be back quite soon. And when those parts come back, we'll carry on with the video.